Hello everybody, this is Van Quest English coming through with you with an episode on America's people titled Us as Black People. Over the years, black people have endured a lot of trials and tribulations. First thing was slavery, which existed in the United States of America in the 18th and 19th centuries. As a slave, the black people had to live on white people's land. They didn't even get any money for their work, and living condition was very bad. They had to work in the plantation, picking cotton from sunup to sundown. Most women cooked, cleaned the house, and raised the children of their white masters. The black males were carpenters, masons, farm laborers, and they planted harvest crops. In the bigger cities, the slave there was free, but they had very few rights. Arkansas terrorists, but heated debates over the issue of slavery. On January the 4th, 1836, the convention met to write a constitution. On most points, they agreed, but once again, the issue of slavery caused more heated debates. Finally, a constitution permitting slavery was formed and submitted as Congress. Again, the slavery issue was a point of contention, but a lean Congress voted to admit Arkansas to the Union as a slave state. If the blacks didn't do what they were told, then they were beaten, sometimes whipped with a whip. Some of the blacks tried to run away, but if they got caught by their plantation owner or his friends, they got killed or hung. Slaves was considered to be their slave owner's property. Sometimes the slaves were sold to another plantation. When slaves are took to a warehouse to be sold, they wore their best clothes to try and attract the buyers. They had to leave their family and friends behind. The white people referred to the slaves as nigger, monkey, and mud people and coon. Slavery in the United States began in the early 1600s. By the 1860s, there were about 3,954,000 nigger slaves in the United States. Nearly 1/3 of the total population of the 15 southern slave states. In ancient times, people had slaves. The Hebrews had their own law that after 6 years the slave should be set free. Poor Greek men sold their children into slavery. By the 1300s, slavery in Europe almost disappeared. In Spain, King Charles I in 1915 started the slave trade. By 1770, British ships were carrying about half the slaves brought to America. A law passed in 1807 against the slave trade. Slavery itself continued until the end of the Civil War. Most Latin American countries established slavery as soon as they had won independence. Brazil did not stop slavery until 1888, despite new attitudes and the abolishment of a widespread slave trade. Slavery still existed in the world. In the United States of America, President Abraham Lincoln ended slavery in 1865. The Civil War is what ended slavery. A lot of slave owners were very upset. Even after slavery had ended, the blacks had to go to separate schools from the whites. The blacks couldn't eat in the same restaurants as the whites or the same restrooms. At the restaurant, the blacks had to eat at the back of the restaurant outside. Some of the white people put gasoline in glass bottles and put a piece of paper into the bottles, lit the piece of paper with a match, and threw it through black people's homes, clothes, churches, and businesses. In 1954, the Supreme Court ends desegregation, means the blacks was able to go to school with the whites. The African Americans' life in Bowie County, Texas. The first African Americans that lived in Bowie County was in the mid-1830s. By the 1840s, Bowie County became known in the great state of Texas. Slaves were moved into Bowie County to protect their owners' investment. African Americans worldwide celebrated Juneteenth, which was the day that President Abraham Lincoln freed slaves. After the Civil War, many slaves could not find houses or jobs. In Bowie County during the 1900s, there were no black farm owners. Before the 1900s and after the Civil War, any slaves who lived in Bowie County had to work for a white family or their master. In the South, for Bowie County was starting to educate slaves. In the 1800s through 1888, there was 19 African American schools in Bowie County. There was only 11 teachers. The male teachers were made more than the female teachers. A lot of progress was made for the black community by the 1890s in Bowie County. More schools were being added. Both male and females were being paid more money. In 1905, colored people had more progress in life within the churches. From the age group of 21 to 31, African American men in Bowie County entered World War I. There are many organizations that help many colored people gain job skills, guidance, and decision-making skills. In 1954, students did not meet the requirements to attend Texarkana College. In 1956, another judge qualified the colored students to be enrolled at Texarkana College. Then the school board decided that the black students take a general aptitude test. The test failed all the black students except two. During the first day of class for the two black students, it was hell. White people marching around the college with signs saying, "We don't want to go to school with no black person." The two black students being led into the building by police officers. Both the black students ended up dropping out of school. In 1964, a black couple became teachers at a white school in Bowie County. The two teachers were treated equal. Pine was even named president of a very important organization at school. From Bowie County, many African Americans went on to do big things. Some of the blacks was Scott Joslin, who became a musician, Dr. Geraldine U. Jameson created, owned, and operated the first black medical clinic and pharmacy in Bowie County. It was called the Jameson Sanctuary. Inside the Jameson Sanctuary, the African American people had a coffee shop, a cafe, a club, a cleaners, barber shop, and a newspaper stand. Later on, a business lead and a library was added inside the building, only for colored people. There was two sisters from the Bowie County. One was really great music instructor and a pianist. The other sister became the first black model in Paris. Antonio Marie Smith owned a real estate company in Texarkana. He was the publisher of the Dallas Express. He was also the executive secretary of the Dallas Negroes Chamber of Commerce. Later in his life, he was the director of the Hall of Negro Life of the Texas Commissary Expulsion. Sometimes people called him Mr. Civil Rights or Mr. Organization. Because of his help, he worked with African Americans. Willie Davis, a defense end for the Green Bay Packers in 1960. He was number 87 from Bowie County. Africans, the second largest continent. African used to be called the Dark Continent due to its being unknown by Europeans. African has the world's largest river and the largest desert. African people in the 1950s was ruled by Europeans. Nigeria is considered to be the largest city in Africa. All countries in Africa belong to the United States. Some African leaders are Jomo Kenyatta, William V.S. Tubman, Julius Nyerere, Goldman Albundo Nezra, Nobuk Boju, and Haile Selassie. Some people in Africa live in rural areas. Most Africans are farmers and some are herders. The soil is thin and poor in Africa. Africa dancing is one of the highly developed African arts. Corn is a major crop in eastern and southern Africa. Some of the farmers grow root crops. African women do the farming while the men take care of the legal and political affairs. The women plant wheat and harvest crops. They grind the grain and cook meals. Bananas are considered to be a big crop in Africa. European traders sell grain and other products in business city markets. Silken Village in Saudi Arabia has houses with walls made of mud, plastic over branches. Modern houses in a small village near Kessalia, the collision capital, have grained iron rooting, well section of nearer Nigeria encloses other resident neighborhoods. True, Negroes represent the largest group of Nigerian people in Africa. Bushmen hunters live in small bands in the Barrett in the let me see. Hold on just a minute. And gather roots and fruits in the forests of the Congo River. Bonus. Asians are numerous in southern Africa. Many Indians live in the big part of the city called Dunbar. Egyptians managed farms in Rhodes, a center of British settlement in Africa. British tribesmen of northern Africa form a large group. Mediterranean Concurrent Niger language are spoken over a large part of Africa. The concurrent languages are unusual click sounds to form words. Language are spoken in northern Africa. Christianity was spread throughout Africa by musicians. About 35 million Africans belong to various Christian churches. In the turbulent religion, people often offer sacrifice to a god. Muslims in Africa pay to 5 times each day. A college education is provided in most countries of Africa. A shortage of trained teachers is a major problem in almost all African countries. Providing new opportunities for education is now one of the major goals of most African governments. The education of women hold skilled jobs such as nursing. African American higher education is a way to raise production. Mass headdresses is worn by Quebec boys at a tribute ceremony that interpret them into manhood. The decorations are made of beads and of shells called cowards. Bowie ancestors figure is used for the ancestor spirit. A Brazil memory head honors a ruler of the old kingdom of Benin. In Nigeria, rat paintings flourish among the ancient deliverers of the Sahara and desert. A common knife from the upper Congo River area is typical of the many objects made in Africa that are presented as works of art. Colorful painted clay walls surround the homes of chiefs of the Northern tribes of southern Africa. A beaded headdress is made so skillfully that the design seems to have painted on heavy rain fall in the tropical forests of the river, the home of Africa Peregrines. The dry suburb never has over 10 inches of rain a year. Africa's tallest mountain, 19,340 foot kilometers near the equalizer in Toronto. Lake Victoria is Africa's largest river. Victoria Falls is one of Africa's great potential sources of power. Gorillas are the tallest of all animals that live in the dry grasslands of Africa. Lions are among the strongest and feared of Africa's wild creatures. Wild ashes of the African desert are related to the desert donkey. Leopards of the forests and plains are caring, grateful, and powerful. Many Alton Delawars work hand and use great skill to make a living in Africa. Cattle herding is a way of life for many people who live on the grasslands of Africa. Since is an important crop in eastern Africa. Modern farm machinery is used on many farms in eastern Africa. Cocoa is one of West Africa's leading cash crops, manufacturing and mining of iron ore. Copper mines, lumber processing industry, texture mills, and the rich golden and uranium deposits, radio broadcasting. Why don't you answer me, Mama? Broadcast increased rapidly in Africa since 1950. Most traffic in Africa is increasing, even though most roads are rough and not paved. Africa's largest railroad system links all parts of South Africa. Dugout canals provides transportation for both goods and passengers on tropical African rivers and lakes. North Africa used camels to haul goods in the Sarabia, a Brazil head made of iron in southwestern Nigeria in the AD 1200s is almost the finest example of African sculptures. A product of early Africa is a Brazil figure from the 1950s. It came from the ancient kingdom of Benin. African had only two independent countries in 1940, Ethiopia and Liberia. The rest of the continent was under colony rulers. Saudi Arabia is the largest country in Africa. Saudi has a coastal line on the Red Sea that is 400 miles. The country's government has been overthrown twice since the Sultan became independent in 1956. The desert region, the steppe region, the savanna region, and the equivalent region and are Saudi's four main regions. The water supply is what all Saudi is surrounded by. Egypt invaded northern Saudi, and now Guinea is the second largest island in the world. The island of New Guinea covers about 317,115 square miles. 2 million people on the island of New Zealand. News Aurelia has three political devices. Scientific advice has affected a lot of people's life in News Aurelia. A lot of homes in News Aurelia are on high platforms for protection. Nigger is a teemly populated country in Western Africa. Nigger is a republic and it belongs to four main groups. The Philippians, the Todrians, the Dominican, and the Hausa. Mostly all of niggers is above sea level. Niger River is the third largest river in Africa. Nigerians have more people than any other country in Africa. The popularity is like 62 million. Nigeria is a republic and is rich in natural resources. Togo is the smallest country in Western Africa. The form of government is presidential regime. The capital of Togo is Lime. The only language of Togo is French. The area is 21,622 square miles. The colors are green, yellow, white, and red. The farmers in Togo carry live pottery to and from the market. Each pottery is in a cone-shaped basket. Each has a air hole in the top. The Togo government was overthrown by army officers in 1967. Two land regions divide the Togo mountain. The women in Togo carry goods on their heads in bases. Tarzino Laverno was the ruler of Haiti. He was a black rebellion in general. Him and his parents were slaves. In order for him to become leader, a revolt broke out in 1791. Savier's True, she was a black establisher and advocate for black women. She was born in New York as a slave. Under state law, she became free in 1827. She tried to improve her life and other blacks while working in Washington, D.C. Well, that's the end of episode 1. Well, stay tuned for episode 2, which I'll be doing that tomorrow. Alright, bye.